We are in the final stages of getting the ASS2000 back on the road. We've got all our suspension arms with new bushings in it, adjustable ball joints in there. We've got a big juicy exhaust system to throw on there. So what do you say, Peter?
I say we're almost ready to go, but I'm going to do most of the hard work on this. Dave's the brains of this operation, obviously.
And we brought our special helper just in case we need a little extra. So out here on the back of the old ASS2000, we have our lower control arms with new hard race bushings that have been pressed in. I want to thank Bob and the guys at Crichton for doing that, and Chris and the guys at Stage 4 for actually supplying these bushings. In the upper control arm, we have these SPC camber adjustable ball joints, so that'll give us our camber adjustability in the rear. And then on the knuckle, if I can lift that up, we have these Buddy Club P1 ball joints, which are actually taller than the OEM ones, which again is correcting the roll center on the back end of the car. So we'll put those on now, and then we'll get to the drive shafts.
Man, it's so nice to finally be working with nuts and bolts that aren't seized or rusted. Putting the rear end together was almost too easy. I think part of me actually enjoys this struggle. No, wait, who am I kidding? Hell no. I'll take a painless install over dealing with rusted crap all day long.
So we're about to install this rear axle, but before we do that, I wanted to show you this block spacer, which is a pretty cool little deal. It's literally just a billet spacer that goes on the input side of the drive shaft here, and it corrects for the axle angle on a lowered car like ours. So it takes all of the stress out of the CV, so it'll give us better drive shaft reliability. It's a really clean little product, comes with all the hardware you need, so we're going to slap that on there now.
The genius of the block spacers is that they're split into two pieces so they can be installed without having to pull the shafts out. That didn't matter in our case though, but for those of you guys that are doing it, it should help. It took me way too long to remove the rusted drive axles from the hub, so I'm hoping with the help of some anti-seize, I'll never have to face that problem again. After attaching the SPC upper ball joints to the hub assembly and hooking the brakes up along with the sway bar, the rear end is officially 100% back together.
Same deal up front. We've got hard race bushings replaced on both the upper and lower control arms. We've got the SPC adjustable ball joint on the upper control arm. And because we're big on overkill, we've got a camber adjustable ball joint for the lower ball joint that attaches to the knuckle. The advantage of having both, well, it gives you some wiggle room as far as, do you want to push the bottom of the tire out? Then you do that with this guy. Or do you want to pull the top of the tire in? Well, then you do that with the SPC. With the SPC, you lose a little bit of clearance by pulling the top of the tire into the strut. And with the bottom one, you gain a bit of track width on the bottom, which may or may not be a good thing depending on how you want to set your car up. This way we've got both. It's overkill, but we like that here. So one of the cool things that I learned when talking to one of Valvoline's oil engineers is that bearing clearance is key when choosing the weight of your oil. And since this is a stock block, totally unmodified F20C, and the factory fill is a 30 weight, we want to stick with a 30 weight too, because then we know the weight of the oil is correct for the bearing clearances. We also like that this Valvoline is full synthetic, so it's going to stand up really well to the heat at the track. And yes, it's a high mileage oil, and it's not really that high mileage of an engine, but that just means it's got a few more additives in it. It's not going to do us any harm at all. Last job up front is to put in our WinMax USA brake pads. We've got stock tech pads in here now, but we want to go to more of a pure competition pad. So for the front, we've gone with WinMax's W5 compound, which is really a competition road racing type of brake pad. It's not really designed for the street, although we might cheat and drive them on the street anyway. For the rear, we've gone with a W3 pad, which is more of their street, autocross, open lapping type pad, so it's more streetable. And the reason we're staggering the pads has to do with the way the car is set up in terms of spring rates, tire choice. All of that was discussed with Sam at WinMax, and that's how we ended up with this combination of pad. So we're pretty stoked to get them on there and have some really impressive stopping power at the track. Much to our surprise, the flange on the transmission for the drive shaft is actually slightly different on the AP2 than it is on the AP1. The AP2 is a little bit bigger in diameter, but more importantly, it uses a larger diameter bolt. So you have to swap the AP1 flange off of the AP1 tranny onto the AP2 tranny to make the swap work. It's actually pretty simple. It's just held on with a large nut, and it's got like a punch in it, sort of like an axle nut. There's a little washer that comes with it, so we'll swap that over. It came off easily enough with the gun. Torque specs we'll have to figure out, but anyway, it's not the end of the world to have to swap these over.
For those of you that are interested in an exhaust system that isn't too loud, isn't raspy, and are distinguished gentlemen like us, then Tanabe's Medallion Touring is the perfect choice because it's actually 93 decibels street legal, and it actually flows well, so it gives good performance. It's also made in Japan, it's a quality piece, so we're all about this exhaust, and you should be too.
Believe it or not, the most difficult part of the exhaust install turned out to be fitting the old catalytic converter, since the donut gasket had been chewed up and we didn't have a new one. As for the Tanabe system, I can't stress enough how spot on the fitment is. I'm talking every flange lines up without having to tug or pull it into place. Believe it, it's that good. Chrome mufflers usually aren't my thing, but I'm digging this setup, especially since it's so OEM looking.
So it's time to take some of the monkey stink out of this interior, including this disgusting shift knob. It's actually a really nice shift knob from the factory, but it's ours looks like it's been gnawed on by rodents. So we're tossing this in favor of a nice, clean little white Buddy Club shift knob. Of course, my hands are all dirty and it's gonna get cheesy looking pretty quick, but we'll clean it off once a year. So, universal fit. Let's test the theory. Oh, look at that. Thread pitch is correct. And interior's a show car now. Done. We're finally ready to fire this sucker up, but we've got one last detail to share with you. The all-important ASS2000 custom license plate. Now, admittedly, it's just a vanity plate. It's not real, but we're gonna run it at the racetrack.
Here's the moment of truth. Has all the hard work paid off, or are we gonna be doing this all over again? DP, fire it up. Yes! All right, we got ourselves a running automobile. And now we can listen to the Tanabe Medallion Touring exhaust system. Rev it up, DP.
Alright, so we made firing up the S2000 look pretty much trouble-free, but the truth is when we first turned it on, it sounded like a diesel, and it started throwing engine codes, and we were like, oh my god, the sky is falling. Turns out it was just a cam position sensor that wasn't plugged in. We got that sorted. She smoothed right out after it warmed up, so it was time to put the front bumper on and throw this baby to the ground. Strangely, the ride height seemed to be lower now. I guess when you change every bushing and ball joint on the car, that'll happen. And as you can see, the alignment was completely out of whack, so it was time to run the ASS2000 over to our buddies at NV Auto for a proper 3D alignment. NV has a top-of-the-line Hunter alignment setup, and as we saw on the computer screen, the alignment on the ASS2000 was terrible. But an hour or so later, after turning some wrenches, fiddling with those SPC ball joints, and you know what? That meant it was all green everything on the screen, which meant we had the alignment dialed in just the way we like it. About 2.7 degrees of negative camber up front, and about 2.1 degrees of negative camber out back, along with about a 1/4 inch of toe in, just to stabilize that twitchy rear end.
This episode's parts total adds up to a whole $1,826. More importantly though, it wraps up our rebuild of the ASS2000 and we can finally get back to focusing our efforts on lower lap times at the track. The total money spent so far is now at $18,697.19. And as per some of your comments, yes, of course we realize we could buy a whole variety of cars for the amount we spent, but where's the fun in that? We love taking a turd and polishing it up and turning it into our own piece of gold. Or, better known as, the ASS2000.
Why are you talking now, David? You haven't talked all day and now you're talking? Because we're talking.
That's right, that's how it goes.
Alright, whatever.
Talk loud.